We are live, ladies and gentlemen. Listen, hey, good morning, good afternoon, and in some places, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this week's new lunch break, Xbox lunch break special. I'm your host, Mr. BoomStick XL, and my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, do we have a killer show to you. Not only do we have Web Dave and Fuzzy Belvedere and soon to be the crazy one, Crazy Lou Gaming, but we have a very special guest joining us who absolutely had to be a part of this show simply because, well, he has a lot to say about the Lena Khan led FTC and their ultimately lie in their legal documents that they produced for the blockage of the Activision Blizzard King deal that actually was all of the talk of the town on Thursday afternoon. There are two things that we have to get into first. One, and this is the most important, folks. I have to go full screen for a hot second because I have to thank a good friend of the show. And this is someone that did something for me that nearly moved me to tears. As a content creator, I get a lot of incredible messages from people, and the words that of support for myself and how I have been there in people's corners for some of their toughest times is one of the greatest gifts that I can get, because I don't do this for that. I do it because I love gaming, but more importantly, I love this community. So when I get out on the mic 5 days a week and I'm doing these shows, sure. Is it fun? Absolutely. Do I get to be in the zeitgeist of gaming? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, being a part of the community for me is the most important thing. So shout out to Jangles 5280, because my God, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know me personally, and I think most people do, I am a G.I. Joe freak. I have been a fan of G.I. Joe since 1982. G.I. Joe is the reason why I became a police officer. I know that sounds ridiculous, but that is the absolute truth. I became a police officer because of the values that G.I. Joe instilled in knowing's half the battle, and a good versus evil, and being there for the little guy. And it really has been a big part of my life since 1982, when for my 12th birthday, I wound up getting the Vamp Jeep, Stalker, and Zap. And those are my first GI Joes. And since then, I've been a fan. I'm collecting the classified collection that's out now, which is like the 6.5-inch figures, and I have every one of them. I love it. But I got to show you what he designed for me. Now, he's an artist by nature. You can find him on Instagram. You can find him on Twitter. Again, I'm just going to go full screen so I can show everyone this. This is incredible, folks. Now, I'm going to bring this up to you. This is what he made for me. This is a one-of-a-kind G.I. Joe Xbox Series X controller. And besides it saying made for Boom, see, that's not what nearly brought me to tears. It's what it says in the back that did. Treat others how you want to be treated. And that's something that my pop taught us. I said at the end of every show, I mean, this is a master class work of controller design. And again, I got to shout out Jangles 5280 for delivering something that is absolutely astounding. Like, I am never even going to use this controller. It is going to sit there on display because, well, it's one of a kind. So a big shout out and thank you for that. But let's get into introductions. Oh, and there is one small piece, folks, of news. Sometimes I go back and I listen to some of the older shows, and I listen to Breakfast with Boom, and I got to offer the community an apology for a second. When this news was brought to our attention that the FTC was going to block this deal, I was very disappointed as a gamer. But I was also very disappointed as an American citizen, because one of the things that's goes into these big court cases is our tax dollars that we pay a lot is going to be wasted on Lena Khan's ridiculous notion that this deal is somehow illegal. And I actually was so in my feelings, so to speak, that I was willing to concede something like Starfield going on to the PlayStation 5 as just to get the deal done. And the more I sat about it over the weekend, I thought, man, Boom, you are ridiculous to suggest such a thing. Microsoft doesn't owe Bethesda games to anyone but its consumers, and that is Xbox. Sony still hasn't put Spider-Man onto the Xbox. Am I not mistaken? They could if they want to, if they wanted to double the sales, but they won't because, well, Spider-Man sells consoles, sells PlayStation consoles. So if you were in your feelings because I sounded like a lunatic, then you have every right to have felt that because I thought about it and I said that's ridiculous. Microsoft doesn't owe anyone anything. They are trying to compete in a market that has a someone in first place that has been in first place for 2 decades long. So again, that's just my again. When I'm wrong, folks, I'll be the first one to get out there and say it. But Crispy Bomb, thanks so much for joining us, brother. How you feeling?
Oh, I'm feeling real good. And yeah, I mean, one word, integrity. See, that's integrity. You said, you know what? Maybe I was a little wrong there. And let me step that back because, that's called integrity. And he probably lost sleep over that after he thought
You know,
about it.
it's funny. I honestly kid you not. It bothered me so much that I had to open up the show with it because I said to myself, "My God, what are you saying, Craig?" Like I was one of the first ones to say Microsoft doesn't have to put anything anywhere because they're in third place and they're trying to get to first place, and in order to do that, they need to have content. Microsoft said, no, we're going to keep Call of Duty like everywhere. But for me to suggest that they should give up Bethesda games to Sony because they are crying was incredibly wrong. And like I said, I do end that ridiculous notion.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where I go and say, like, don't take if people disagree with you, don't take them out of context. That's something that I've seen within the past 24 hours. And also understand that we might not be lawyers, but we also listen to lawyers, okay, about this stuff.
Hoaglaw being one of them, yes.
Yeah, yes, and we are going to interpret it as an opinion because it is our opinion. We're going to speculate because we have an opinion and we might have some pie in the sky thought process. But I suggest always to go listen to these lawyers that pass the bar exam and go listen to them and interpret it the way you want to. And I think people need to see that because as we continue to talk about this, I think it's very important that people understand that we are entitled to our opinion and we're going to say it. And sometimes we might be right and sometimes we might be dead wrong, but we'll admit it. And that's the point.
Look, at the end of the day, if you don't agree with my opinion, there are always things you can do. You can reach out to me. We can have a conversation on DM. Right? You can unsubscribe to the channel. You could not listen to the show on a weekly basis. I would be saddened by that because, of course, I want everyone to enjoy the content. But we don't always get it right. And when I don't get it right, I'm the first one to let you know that I got it wrong. I will tell you that, and that's that was a bad take. It was a bad take, not because someone called me out for it. No, that's here nor there. I honestly I don't care what anyone says about me because I think that I have proven my worth to this community, and I don't do this kind of things for clout. I'm just not a clout chaser. I do enjoy doing these shows for the interaction with the community. That's the most important thing to me. And again, if you disagree with me, that's great. That we can have a conversation. I don't like it when people are vicious or mean, and you will be put on the pay no mind list by either blocking or muting. And listen, you know what? We don't have to be friends. That's perfectly fine. But thanks again for the defense as always, Crispy. Definitely appreciate that. Um, Web Dave, you had an interview, one heck of an interview with one of the community leaders known as Tim Dog.
Yep.
Yeah, that was I can't wait for people to listen to it.
Yeah, that one comes out next week, and that's going to be a big one for next week. Oops, I didn't have my camera on. And it's I'm looking forward for everybody to enjoy that because it was a great interview, and Tim really
Insightful,
opens
from what
up.
I understand.
Yeah, he really I mean we got into some gaming. It was some really good stuff, and he's a really fascinating cat. I'll tell you that right now. But the new interview that I just did, which dropped today, was with Silent Cipher,
Oh,
and
nice, good
man,
one.
and he's
Yes.
actually in the chat. He's really good, and he might be somebody good if you ever needed somebody to fill in. Boom, he'd be right there for you. I'll tell you that right now. He puts up with
Yes.
Crazy Lou. He's got to be able to handle.
Well,
Oh, I
he
love you,
is a
Lou.
part of the Xbox International
Yes.
podcast, which is a phenomenal show. If you haven't checked it out, you definitely should check that out. But yeah, we definitely got to get Silent Cipher on here, and find out. I actually can't wait to listen to it because you do a great job. And of
Thanks,
course,
man.
I think the most important thing about Dave's interviews is that it's not always about gaming. It's about other things like real life. So thanks so much for that, Dave. Fuzzy
Thanks, buddy.
Belvedere, what's up, brother? Welcome.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to those out there. Man, it's awesome to be here. Awesome to have Crispy here. Man, I, this FTC stuff, it upsetting stuff, but man, we got some stuff to hash out. So yeah, I can't wait to get into it. Gaming, it's the holidays. We got some pretty cool titles coming out. High on Life is right around the corner. I think
Yeah, one
is it
day away.
tomorrow?
Yeah, tomorrow.
So yeah, this is it's ramping up. It's definitely ramping up, but man, we got a lot to discuss. So let's get to it.
Well, you know what we're gonna do, besides the fact that again the Lena Khan led FTC basically lied on the document, and I have exactly what it said, and this is obviously, there's a lot you can take away from this. Now, the other day, Hoglaw, who I've mentioned on this show, who's been on this show, did a 2.5 hour podcast, breaking down this complaint, this antitrust complaint by the FTC to stop this ABK merger. And one of the things, or at least one of the very major aspects of this document, there are two things that completely jump off the page that are wrong. First, they go on to say that Microsoft misled regulators in the EU. And we had a response from the EU that said that's not what happened, not even remotely close. Basically, throwing the FTC under the bus. And I'm going to read line 12 of the FTC court complaint that explains exactly what I'm talking about. If you hadn't had a chance to read through the document, it is an incredible read. Again, this is line 12 of the antitrust court document. And it says this, folks. Microsoft assured the European Commission, the EC, during its antitrust review of ZeniMax of the ZeniMax purchase that Microsoft would not have the incentive to withhold ZeniMax games from rival consoles. But shortly after the EC cleared the transaction, Microsoft made public its decision to make several of the newly acquired ZeniMax titles, including Starfield and Redfall and Elder Scrolls 6, Microsoft exclusives. Now, what basically happened was the EU, or the EC as they have it over, the European Commission, was reached out to by several entities within gaming, Axios being one of them. That's a Stephen Totillo led company. And basically what happened was, well, they said Microsoft was allowed to purchase Bethesda or ZeniMax without any concessions because they felt that there would be no competition concerns. So, what I don't understand, folks, is their case is already lost, in my opinion. I mean, only on the 12th paragraph, you are dictating a complete lie, and you tried to bring the EU into basically strong arm the EU into your opinion, and they had to come out and say no, that's not what happened. So that is a bad look for the FTC. This is what I talked about: millions of our taxpayer dollars being wasted on the ambition of someone that may be looking well past her FTC chair. I don't know what to say other than this is politically motivated. Microsoft, big company, bad. You know what I'm saying? Microsoft of the 90s still has the stigma, but let's forget what Microsoft has done since then to be a better world partner. I don't know what else to say, but the other aspect, and you know what? I want to break this down because we still have a lot of show to get to. I'm going to start first with Crispy. Crispy, you're our guest. This is not a good look for the FTC. Okay, the EU comes out and basically throws Lena Khan's case right under the bus by saying this in the document that Microsoft. I mean, they don't say lie; they say misled. But basically, they're saying Microsoft lied. I don't know how this would look if this would be in front of a federal judge, which ultimately it might get to. It's going to be laughed out of court just on this alone. What are your thoughts?
You know what just what you read, the one word is assured. So explain to me how Microsoft assured the EC, EU, whatever you want to call it. Okay. That commission, how they assured them without any documentation. And that's where you go and say, okay, you're bringing out public statements like, oh, we're doing it as a case by case basis, stuff like that. You literally in your 12th line said that they assured them, which means you could say it's a lie, it's not a lie, whatever you want to call it. It looks like a lie to me because, they said, no, that didn't happen because there was no concessions. And that's where we go into the documentation. Okay. It is a little ridiculous that people are saying, well, they didn't technically lie. They kind of did, bro. Like you can interpret a lie whatever way you want to, but they kind of did. And that's where you look at what the FTC, and we're going to get into more of it, but I mean, the case, and it's not just our friend Hogue or even Luke that have talked about this stuff. It is watching Bloomberg and a bunch of other sites that are looking at this a little perplexed, okay, and a little beside themselves of why our taxpayer dollars are going against this. And everybody ignores the fact that, the Communication Workers of America is involved in this. And this would be unprecedented for them to have this happen. And I think, as we go through this, at least with the FTC, we're not going to talk about the EU and CMA right now, but for them to go back against the FTC and the FTC to bring these type of arguments out is absolutely ridiculous. And that line is just it assured. I mean, what does that mean to you? Well, I mean, do you need to bring up the dictionary definition? Because assured means there's some kind of contract in some way. A public statement, even if it's brought out of context, does not imply assured. Okay, was it a written document that may not be a contract that was sent to the EC? Okay, what are we doing? Like I don't understand it, Boom. And as we get more into this document, I just it's one of those things where you just see the politicalness involved. And me being an independent, I've always been an independent. When I was taught how to vote, I am an independent. That's how and I was one of the few. Some people are like, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, whatever. I am an independent. And I look at this document and I say, who wrote this? I mean, you went to school, you went through how many years of school and everything else, and this is your logic, and you're going to cite a foreign entity and you're technically, with your words, defending another foreign entity
Yep.
about two American companies merging. This is not logical. I'm sorry. And you know, I don't want to get into the rest of it, but I mean, that's the start, dude. Like, that's bad.
Well, I got one better for you. How about this? What about the the FTC is claiming that Microsoft misled the EC, right? By telling them this is what we're going to do. But I find that weird, Crispy, because how come they didn't bring forth the document that says Microsoft said that to them? Right? Like if they would have if they would have said that to the EU Commission and the CMA, which approved this deal with no concessions back in 2021, where do you find it odd that Microsoft would have said the same thing to the FTC? And why didn't the Lena Khan led FTC bring that and put that conversation into this document? They couldn't, because Microsoft never said that. So
There's no
I don't
document.
know. Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those, like, I'm just so confused right now because, you know, I understand there's a world market. I understand that, but we are talking about single entities within their market that are supposed to protect their own consumers. You know what I'm saying? And if the FTC is citing, and I saw something about, you know, like, they're basically trying to make the argument that was like a prohibition argument, or a post-prohibition argument, that was like, okay, if I own a liquor store, I can't own a restaurant because I could provide that liquor to that restaurant, and it's basically, you know, molding it into, you know, like, I can decrease the price, and I can do whatever I want within that entire ecosystem. But it's such an old argument. It's like saying, okay, Sony, you can't buy Bungie because they make content and you are a platform holder.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
it makes absolutely no sense. So I don't want to get too much more, because I have went into this tenfold. That's where I say integrity. I understand I am not a lawyer, but I've also listened to lawyers, and you know, I'm in line with their arguments, and that's something that, you know, like, I get that people don't want to hear this all the time, but this stuff is for the American people, you know, at least in our government, this is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. You know what? I'll say this. As an American citizen that obviously, does believe in truth and justice in our government, I'm embarrassed for the FTC. I'm literally embarrassed. Like I said, this is not coming from a ex-bot. This is I'm not getting a dime out of this deal, folks. Understand that I am not getting a single dime. I am going to, um, you know, relish in the Call of Duty potentially coming to Xbox Game Pass for $70 that I don't have to spend. Hopefully, if this deal is done, or maybe even if it's held up, you know, come when Diablo 4 is released, we will get that into Xbox Game Pass. We don't know, because obviously it's at least 6 months away, right? So all I can say is that at the end of the day, I, what is right, and what is wrong is wrong. And the FTC is wrong here. They lied. They put it in their document, their legal document that a judge eventually is going to see. And it's pretty embarrassing that you can talk for on the European entity, make a statement for them, and then hours later that entity has to come out and say, no, that's not actually what happened. I would be ashamed. I'd be embarrassed. That is a black eye on the FTC. Dave, let's get your opinion on this, brother. You are obviously you know, what the work that you do is in banking, right?
Yep.
So you understand numbers. You understand contracts. You understand that if you lie on a contract, there is something to be said about ramifications, repercussions of that
Mhm.
said lie. That is what has happened here. What are your thoughts on this? Just on what we have in front of us, does the FTC even have a leg to stand on?
Well, I think they kicked the legs out from underneath themselves with this.
Mm.
They really, they're grasping at straws. They're 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 trying to build up their own case so that they can say it's David against Goliath. It's them against the mighty Microsoft, and they're trying to do their job and hold them in check because they don't want them to try and take over the world of gaming. And that's kind of where their stance is. And for those of us that are in gaming or play gaming a lot, that actually play a console and understand how to use a controller, for basics, that they don't get it. They don't. Their arguments when we see them from knowing what the market is, from being a consumer and knowing what's available to be purchased and what things cost and what system has the dominant amount of games or exclusives, and had the releases come out, quote unquote, this year and recent months. We know where it is, and so their arguments that they're trying to make to even the average gamer is like, no, that's not true. That's not the way that is. That's not it at all. And then to really try and hold the gaming market and leave out Nintendo, one of the most
We're gonna get to
reputable
that.
and classic gaming companies that's ever been, and single-handedly saving video games, after the Atari, kind of debacle, and
Well, they had the
bringing it
crash in
back.
82, 82,
Right.
83, and then they came back in 1985, and basically it's Nintendo's. Nintendo's what really saved gaming. You're 100% right in saying so.
And for them to just dismiss them like they're nothing or a child's game. The Hogue Law, which I'm sure you all saw it, but Hogue did he doesn't do shorts usually, the little mini clips, but he released a short on YouTube yesterday afternoon. It's like a 2-minute little clip, and he actually had some editing and stuff on it. It's so funny, talking about the Nintendo store and some of the games that are available. There's over like 400 or 4,000 mature rated games
Yeah.
on their store, and then talking about the available. And he showed clips, but he blurred everything out, which was so funny, of the hentai and adult games that are available on there. That I'm like, what?
It's
I
quite
did not.
shocking, actually.
Yeah, I know what I need to order. I mean, wait, no, but no, I'm just kidding. But the but it's like their arguments are just one after the other. Bam, knock them down, knock them down, knock them down, and then to put the date like they did. The date they set up in August, because they know what Microsoft's deadline was. To get this done was in June or July. They said we should have this wrapped up by then.
Right. Yeah.
And they put it in August because they wanted to put the pressure on to counter their will.
If you don't mind,
Go ahead.
I'd like to speak on that for a second,
Of course.
because I want people to understand what that means, because Hogue Law explained it as there's going to be fact-finding information before then. But what's interesting, and I was talking with Keasante and Everborn Saga this morning. There's a reason why there has not been an injunction, because if an injunction happens, it goes straight to a federal judge, which is what Lena Khan doesn't want to happen, because it's going to be laughed out of court. But what's interesting is mid-January, early start of next year, both the CMA and the EU Commission are going to levy their judgments regarding whether or not to block this deal or approve it. Now, if the deal does get approved, and there was some paperwork that was making the rounds, and it really shook up the internet this morning about a document that someone has responded within gaming to the CMA. That document that's making the rounds that you're seeing everyone post is not the CMA's decision. it is someone within the industry. Now, who that is redacted. There's been several talking points from a few people that I know that said that it sounds like it's Epic Games. We don't know for sure because who the company is it's redacted. But everything that's said in here is a clear indication that whoever this entity is, they don't have a problem with this deal. And they specifically call out PlayStation numerous times saying that we understand Sony's position in the market, but this deal does not hurt anyone within the industry. This is now, again, this is just one entity. This isn't everyone combined on one document. This is just one, whether it be Ubisoft, whether it be EA, whether it be Take Two, whether it be Epic Games, whoever it is. It appears that this is what the rest of the industry is saying. I'm imagining we're going to see more of these documents start coming up in the next couple of days, where they're all going to be agreeing that this deal does not hurt gaming in any way. So I just wanted to clear that up. The other thing that I want to clear up is, you mentioned Nintendo, and you talked about Hoglord did a short video about all of these 400 plus mature titles. And I know some of them are some really risque types of games that I would never play. But when you talk about mature games, all you have to do is look to Doom being on Nintendo, right? Doom is on there, right? I mean, you're dealing with hell, so I
Yes.
don't think you can get any more mature than that. But I have some numbers here, folks. And when I do these shows, I love coming to the podcast with numbers to back up my opinions. And one of the things that was very interesting in this FTC levied complaint against Microsoft and Activision is how Nintendo is a non-factor. Like Nintendo doesn't matter because if you read the documents, they specifically said Microsoft is one of two high-powered console makers. So because Nintendo's 720p Switch, it's irrelevant to the conversation. Well, folks, here's some numbers that should change your opinion if you feel that Nintendo is a non combatant, if you will, in this war of video games. To Dave's point, it's Nintendo that literally saved or rebirthed the gaming industry in 1985 when the NES was released in Japan, and then shortly after in the Americas. So if you think about that, just on some of it, all of its parts, Nintendo is responsible for ultimately for the gaming market actually being a thing. And they've been in the gaming conversation since 1985. I mean, I'm no mathematician, folks, but we are now in 2022 and soon to be 2023. To suggest that Nintendo isn't an important part of the conversation is ridiculous. But here's some numbers to back up my opinion here. The new Pokemon, and I have it right here. It is the Scarlet and Violet, right? It's my first Pokemon game I'm ever going to play. I've never played it on the Game Boy. Never played it on the the color, the 3DS. None of that. It's just I'm just not a Pokemon guy. I bought it, and I was one of 10 million people that bought that game. 10 million sales in 3 days, folks. That's double what God of War sold. Double. And God of War is closing in on 6 million from what I understand. But think about that for a second. God of War took almost a month to get to 6, or a month and a half. And the new Nintendo exclusive Pokemon's did it 10 million in 3 days. Think about that just for a second. And I don't know how you could logistically argue that they're not a part of the industry. But I got some more information. Thanks to NVG or NVC, I should say, we have it confirmed that the Nintendo Switch has officially surpassed the PlayStation 4 consoles with 117.3 million consoles sold. Think about that for a second, folks. 117.3 million consoles sold since 2017, since the Nintendo Switch released. Just think about that for a second.
Amazing.
That is ridiculous. And the Game Awards, right? They just happened. They're apparently a big deal. They're seen by millions upon millions of gamers vote for the awards and the categories that they have, right? Millions of people, millions of gamers, everybody. Well, didn't Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 win the most anticipated game for 2023?
Yeah, it did.
It sure did. So to suggest that the Nintendo Switch is not a relevant focus or point of the conversation for something as market leaders is just ridiculous and another lie. Dave, you anything you want to add before I move on to Crispy, and then we'll bring Crazy Lou in.
No, I just some of the chat and stuff going back and stuff about the David Jack brought up a point that that it doesn't go before the judge until August, but Hogue Law said that it could actually wrap up next week because of the it depends on what they bring to the table, because now this is where they get to disclose all their findings and all the information that
evidence is
Microsoft
still
wants
going to
put
be
into it.
evidence is going to be collected up until that August. They're not waiting to August in order to have all the evidence just show up there. Evidence is going to be collected up until then. The Hogue Law also did mention there's a particular case by a company that actually sued the FTC regarding due process, taking 2 years to come to in front of a judge because they are trying to stifle the deal.
And that's before the Supreme Court right now.
The Supreme Court actually ruled that there is an issue there with this going to the lower courts first, having to lose there, then do the appeal to get to the bigger courts. Their major complaint in this was the fact that there is no due process. Due process means speed. Meaning you're supposed to be able to tell and defend yourself in order to get a decision. This having to wait 2 years is not considered due process, and the Supreme Court, our Supreme Court, agreed with that. So there's going to potentially be a decision on that, and based on that decision, all you gotta do is, like I said, go listen to Hogue Law's last video. It's 2.5 hours. It's probably 2.5 of the best hours that he's done, and his guy's done a lot of great work.
Oh yeah, and if the CMA and the EU make their decisions sooner, then it'll be only on the FTC, and they could actually cause them to go ahead and make their decision.
Yes. Well, what's going to happen? Yeah, and you know what? To that point, I'm glad you brought that up, Dave. Just in case.
Welcome, Fonz.
Hi, Fonz Gaming. What's up, brother? How's everything? Hopefully you're doing well. Just to make it clear, just in case I didn't earlier, if the EU and the CMA levy their decision in early January as to being for Microsoft, saying that this, in fact, is not going to hurt competition in any way, what's going to then happen is Lena Khan's going to have to decide whether or not they're serious about this, because they're going to then, if Microsoft is going to be able to then move forward with it, they're going to have to put an injunction in to stop them from completing the merger. If an injunction is in fact put into place, it will not go to the lower courts. It will not go in front of the FTC judge. It will go to a federal judge, who I would imagine is going to laugh this thing out of court. And we all figured that would be the case, because there's literally nothing here. This is not anti-competitive. This is not anti-consumer, not even remotely, not on its best day. And again, if you look at the complaint, folks, it's floating around everywhere. They even suggest that Microsoft has the ability to raise prices when there are lowering prices for admission with the family plan that has been announced. They said that they have reasons to believe that Microsoft would Do what Sony has done. Look at Callisto Protocol, perfect example. Where does it run best? It runs best on the PlayStation 5 because Sony sent 130 developers to help finish that game. I don't know. I mean, call me crazy, but it does seem like Sony got the better part of that deal because they sent the developers and their version runs better than the Xbox version. But Microsoft would not do that. They've already said they wouldn't do that. They said Microsoft in this document can't be trusted because of past behavior. Well, I don't know. Gabe Newell. I think everyone knows who Gabe is. He actually said, well, we told him we don't need a contract because we trust Microsoft. There are so many holes in this case. I'm actually embarrassed of the FTC. But Fuzzy, let's get your hot take opinion on this.
Alrighty. So I like how you guys touch base on the Nintendo aspect where they excluded them because it's not a high performance console. And when I was discussing this on the Shop podcast, the thing that comes to mind, like, I guess however you want to define high performance is high performance that it's more powerful graphically and processor wise, or is high performance sales numbers? Because the only thing that would make sense where they would try to make that exclusion is from a performance graphically or processor wise, which, okay, that's fine, but it still has a lot of the games that are available on the other two consoles, because there's still a PS4 out there that they're making games for. There's still an Xbox One out there that developers are making games for. So considering, yes, it's previous generation, but it's still in the mix as far as what the industry that they're supposedly protecting still caters to that device. So it's funny that they use that to exclude Nintendo, especially considering, like you said, 10 million sold in 3 days versus the biggest seller from PlayStation most recently. I think it was like 5.1 million within
It was 5.1.
the first couple of weeks or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's funny that the thing that would kill their argument, they intentionally leave out, which, okay, it makes sense. You don't want to have information that's going to make you look completely stupid,
right?
But it still makes you look stupid to try to exclude Nintendo when they're a key player in this industry. So all of that aside, I guess they wanted to do that so that way that whole 10-year deal that they gave, or that Microsoft gave Nintendo, so that wouldn't be in the mix either, because they decided to not make any reference to any of that stuff. It just shows the bad faith argument that Lena Khan or the members of the FTC are making. And there's so many levels to the problems with their argument. So you have the exclude Nintendo. That's anybody that can take 10 minutes on Google to research the gaming industry is going to see that's problem one. Problem two, they make reference to the Bethesda deal as far as what Microsoft supposedly promised. And I remember a lot of the words were along the lines of, these games will, we're not going to take games away. And that reference points to things like Fallout 76 is still present on PS4. The Elder Scrolls, although maybe not the later titles that come after that mark, but all the previous titles are still available on that platform.
Or ESO.
Fallout's getting an update, a visual update here in the next, I would say, next couple of months.
On PlayStation 5 for free.
Yeah. So they're not taking existing games away from that platform. So they're sticking to their word on that. But the key caveat that they said is that this is also going to, for like moving forward, it's going to be a case-by-case basis, and where Game Pass exists. So that then puts the ball back into Sony's court if they want to have that app, which we know they don't want to. But you would think at the bare minimum, it would, instead of trying to force the hand of Microsoft, wouldn't it make more sense to force the hand of Sony to say, well, just put a browser on there. You don't have to support the app, but support a browser. I'm pretty sure Microsoft would be willing to create a Edge app for a browser for the PlayStation, or if PlayStation chooses, they can choose Firefox or Chrome, or any other browser out there that's sustainable. But most of them are going to work with the Game Pass browser app at least, and I know they don't want that, but that that whole Bethesda deal just seems like reaching at straws type of thing. It's like,
Yes.
oh, and I like how Crispy pointed out. It's like it is a lie. It can't be referenced any other way. It's an intentional lie, because if you're going to be a regulator and make that ignorant of a statement where you're the one that's the burden of proof is on your end to show that they intentionally did or misled something, and you're giving your interpretation that is easily dissected and disproven, that's a lie. That it's like you're either woefully ignorant or you're intentionally misleading, which a lie is intentionally misleading. So
It's funny, they're doing exactly what they accused Microsoft of doing.
exactly. So
Yeah.
that's another, like, yeah, I won't say feather in their cap, but it's like a feather in Brad Smith's cap on things that he's going to ultimately destroy him on. And then the last one, like, this whole thing is about sending a message to big tech, and that's great. I like it when you're trying to use an example of something, but it only really works when that example that you're trying to make is within the parameters of the example you're trying to make. It's like, you can't say, okay, big tech, we're going to make it harder for you to acquire businesses because we believe it's going to be bad for competition and bad for this and bad for that. It's like, okay, so the Disney thing, that there's no way that was an issue. And yes, I understand it's a different administration now, but even the previous administration with the whole what is it? I just had a mind fart on that one. The
Fox acquisition.
what was it called? Crap. Basically, where the cable companies could possibly charge you more for having a streaming for Netflix.
Yes.
Net neutrality.
Net neutrality. Yes.
Yes,
Thank you.
good
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
Good save there, Crispy.
So there was issues with the whole net neutrality, and Ajit Pai, or whatever his name was, should have probably recused himself from even bothering with that, considering his previous work history. And it's almost like somebody needs to investigate Lena Khan as far as her issues with technology-based companies, because it seems like she has a grudge against Facebook. I mean, I understand some people don't like Facebook or Mark Zuckerberg, and that's fine. But you can't make things personal when it comes to working within regulations and laws and consumer-based stuff.
Correct.
So
Right.
it makes no sense to send this message to big tech and then have an iPhone in your pocket and not go after them for their bad practices with their store. And I understand it's their store. They should have the all the means to make the rules for their store. But when you make it so it's hard for anybody else to have a store other than Google, I mean, they're not really going at each other's throats, because they know they have that quote unquote duopoly that the EU is going to have to work on later on down the road. But it seems like that would be a better target. But no, I guarantee you, Leah Khan has an iPhone in her pocket and is quite happy with that iPhone, and
yes.
would never do this to Apple. Because,
Right.
hey, isn't there a rumor that Apple's considering buying Disney?
Yes, there is that actual rumor. There's also a rumor floating around for the last 2 weeks, or maybe even a month, that SIE, Sony Interactive, is looking to get rid of Sony Pictures. And that's a possibility.
Yeah, so I guarantee you they're not even going to look twice at that. And I guess, well, Sony must not be a big tech company, because they're not bothering with the whole Bungie deal. That, I mean, sure.
I said,
Bungie...
I said, it's funny you say that. I didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize for that.
No, go ahead.
They approved the Bungie deal, which was $3.6 billion in a matter of of a sneeze, or you tying your shoes, or walking to throw out your trash. That's how quickly that deal was approved. That was $3.6 billion.
So it seems like if you're going to make this an example, or use Microsoft as an example, it's like you only have this narrow focus on certain tech companies. It can't be just tech companies in general. It's the ones that are, in the $1 trillion range. But then it's not all of them that's in the $1 trillion range, because Apple's in there, and I haven't heard them say boo about Apple in God knows how many years.
Or Google, for that matter.
Well, they have gone for Google for some smaller stuff, but even the smaller stuff that they do, it's not even related to the tech aspect of things. It was more so like the search engine thing, which they went whole ham in the early days with Microsoft, with the whole browser situation in their software.
Yes.
And that's why you can now change from Explorer or Edge to any other browser you want. But they went after Google with the whole search engine thing, but there's no real competition for search engines. Yes, there's Bing, which is great that they have Microsoft rewards, but they're like, was it 15% penetration compared to, was it 70 or 80% that Google has? And then I think Safari and Apple have like another 6%. So they're not even on the radar as far as search. So the government has gotten after them on the search aspect of things, but they haven't gone whole ham like the EU is more concentrated on that stuff. But I think the FTC at this point, as an American citizen, as a former service member, and I'm not going to go through my whole political preference or whatnot, but it's like, I'm not a fan of big government. First of all, I like government to keep us protected and safe. That's fine. And there's certain services which make sense, like public schools, the postal service, things like that. But having them waste taxpayer money over video games, like, it was bad enough when they used to have these things for, video games cause violent behavior, and they're paying for this research, and it's like, that ain't it, Chief. It really isn't it. But that's nor here nor there. But when you're going to waste time of a company and possibly put employees' jobs on the line when it comes to Activision, because we all know if this deal falls apart, Activision's going to probably cut half their staff. And it's going to be
at minimum. But hey, folks, I didn't make mention of this. I'm a retired police officer, and we have something called the PBA. It's our union. It protects us from the bosses. It protects us from the city. The CWA, I don't know, the biggest union in the Americas as we know it, came out and basically threw the FTC under the bus. Say thanks for nothing, because now we had a clear path. And I'm using their words, to a seat at the table within big tech industry, potentially doing something that has never been done before. But the FTC said, well, we don't care, because we have an agenda. And again, it's a Lena Khan-led agenda where big tech is bad and Microsoft are liars, and we are going to go out of our way to stop this deal. And ultimately, again, folks, Lena Khan, since she has been in charge, since she was given the seat by President Biden, has lost 4 major embarrassing cases, and they look to lose another one. And the Microsoft one will be the 6th one. At what point do the people in charge have her ousted? If this was a business company, if this was a private business company, and she was losing millions to the investors, she would have been axed months ago. And again, I know that someone in the chat who is not for this deal is going to say, you see, Boom, you're out there, man, you're out there, saying that, the taxpayer dollars, what do you care? I care because I pay taxes every year, right along with Mrs. Boom. And usually we owe. So we are paying. So the fact that I may have to pay more because they're wasting millions upon millions of taxpayer dollars, our dollars, I have a problem with that.
I mean, if you were in a city where the DA was losing that many cases on a regular basis, like basically every case that they bring forward, they lose, where would that DA be in like a year? If
they would be out of the position.
Months.
Yes.
They'd be out on the street back to the private sector. It's like there's no mayor or governor that's going to want to keep them. So this whole deal, on the FTC side is just it's bonkers to me, and I've probably rambled enough. It's time to give
No.
Louis a shot here, but I tell you, I'm still concerned about the EU and the CMA, although this has kind of probably put them in better favor with Microsoft because they're like, hey, we ain't that crazy. They're against their own people type of thing. So
Yeah.
the CMA and the EU are kind of like, we'll leave the FTC to be full crazy. We don't want that hate mail or pitchforks and stuff outside our doors. We'll come to the negotiation table and see if we can't get some concessions to say, hey, see what we did, as opposed to fire and vinegar that Lena Khan is shooting. So,
Well,
that's all I got.
what we do understand about Lena Khan is that she does not deal in concessions.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. She has gone on record say that we would rather just sue, and that's the problem, folks. That's the inherent problem, where there is no room to offer up anything. And from what we understand, Microsoft is done offering concessions. They've offered everything they could, and they're not offering any more. And the difference between the CMA and the EU, which I actually had real concern for, is they actually do deal in fact, and they are going to use the evidence that Microsoft has provided. As a matter of fact, I can't go into specifics on who sent me DMs because honestly, folks, I just moved over a second ago and there's 21 of them. And I see there's a lot of conversation in the chat about what we're going to talk about next. That is the document that has been making the rounds. I have a quote from Tom Warren. Anyone that sent it to me, and I will get to it because it's just too much to read during a live show. I'll thank you individually. Thank you for sending the document. It is worthy of a conversation. But before that, folks, before we get Louis in on the conversation, again, I like to be a prepared podcaster. I like to offer up not only my opinion and bring in incredible, people of the community who you see on the panel today, but I like bringing information. I think that's the police officer in me. Like whenever I went to court, I had to bring my memo book. I had to bring all my arrest paperwork, and if I was going to go to trial, I'd have to study. I'd have to bring all the information to put the said person behind bars to do my job, right? And then help the lawyers do theirs. Well, I went to the Federal Trade Commission's website, folks, and I want to read their mission statement because their mission statement is of truth and justice, and you feel powerful when you read it, right? You feel like you guys as a consumer, they have your back. But that's not what's happening right now in front of us with this ridiculous lawsuit to try and block the ABK deal. Now, here is, again, folks, this is from the Federal Trade Commission's own website. This is the lead banner. This is their mission statement, folks, on how they're going to protect us, the American people. And it says this, folks, and I'll read verbatim. The Federal Trade Commission, FTC mission, to prevent business practices that are anti-competitive or deceptive or unfair to consumers, to enhance informed consumer choice and public understanding of the competitive process, and to accomplish this without unduly burdening legitimate business activity. Okay, does that sound anything close to what is happening by the Lena Khan-led FTC? Folks, I don't think so. I think these are two different entities, but technically they're the same. Louis, first of all, what are your thoughts on the fact that they are already in the 12th paragraph of this legal document lying about the EU being misled by Microsoft, EU coming out and saying, wait a second, FTC, that's not what we said. They didn't mislead anything, basically embarrassing the FTC over the weekend. And now you're hearing everyone's opinions, and plus the Federal Trade Commission's mission statement to the American people. Does that sound anything close to what is happening now?
No
Nope.
freaking way, dude. This is look, you got to look at it from a logical consumer perspective. and that is, this is not affecting competition. If anything, it is putting the market holder of gaming. We're not talking about Microsoft being $1 trillion company. I understand that, and I understand that argument completely. But why in God's name are you defending somebody in that specific market, which they have to look at? Okay, because the only consumers, Windows consumers, are not going to get affected, correct? Anybody have a disagreement with that?
Correct.
No,
Yeah.
they're not. Okay. The only people that are going to get affected is gaming consumers. And at this point in time, Microsoft has the cheaper subscription service.
Yep.
Okay. They have cheaper games, which they've said they're going to raise. I understand that. And I'm not happy about it. Okay. Not going to defend them for it. But also, when you're going to possibly bring out a family plan with your subscription service, okay, which, let's be honest here, people, we're not in like 2010. We are in 2022, and subscription services are a thing. I subscribe to YouTube TV rather than paying Cox twice the amount of money. And I pay a smaller company that brings me fiber optics because they said there's a niche here in my state of Connecticut. Okay. And they said, we can do that. And you know what? My internet is pretty darn good. Is it perfect? No, but it sure as heck, I get better customer service from them than I do the latter. Okay. So this is where the competition comes in. And when Sony is constantly, I mean, they're charging you for upgraded versions onto your PS5. And you have the competition doing the opposite. This is what competition is. And it just so happens that Microsoft's like, hey, we want to do this. And we want to do this throughout the entire industry, mobile, whatever it may be. This is an essential purchase to us to upgrade and create more competition throughout the environment. You're not just, Microsoft's not going to be just competing with Sony at that point. They're going to be competing with other mobile game entities. But I mean, are they not smart to just say Riot Games? Come on, come with us.
That's,
you know what I mean? Like we're good. We don't have it. They have shown that like in these other entities, they have done amazing things that you wouldn't think are possible. Okay. And that's what I think. I've been through the ringer. I've looked at Microsoft, been like, what the hell are you doing? You know what I mean? And yes, like one single game, Gears of War, got me to say I'm buying the 360. You know what I mean? Like this game is crazy. And that's where you go and say, yes, I'm not hating on Sony for doing what they do, but how dare you call out Microsoft for doing the same thing?
exactly.
That is absolutely ridiculous. And, you know, I'm sorry, but the Game Awards, that little, like, you know, what is it, like 5 seconds of just Phil is angry, and he's angry
sure he
because
is.
he's trying to do the right thing. Do you think Nintendo's going to sit there and be like, well, you guys got Outer Worlds on here. You got a bunch of games that look even incredible on the Switch on here, and you're offering us Call of Duty? Are you serious? And they have plans to get out another console. I mean, they are a competitor. I'm sorry. I mean, this is where this document is just crazy, man. Like it's so, you know, you know what? It's like what we were thinking the CMA was thinking, and then it went to the people that matter. And that's where you go and say, you know, I hope this is just kind of like, you know, posturing type thing.
Yeah.
Because it feels too political.
Yeah, it's definitely politically motivated. Listen, crazy. Let's get your opinion, but before I do, man, there's been a lot of super chats and channel members giving comments. So I want to just jump on that real quick. The first one of the day comes to us from a very generous friend of the program. Drawn TJ drops a $2 super chat and says, "Hey guys, the deal will go through." Listen, I'm going to be honest with you. I was walking the edge of madness on Friday morning's Breakfast with Boom, and I apologize, and I will apologize again because I'm thinking about, I'm like, man, what was I thinking? This deal is going to go through. I think that the CMA is going to have the CMA and the EU Commission are going to pass this deal because it's not anti-competitive. I think that there's a lot of reasons why you would think that. Like I said, I was so desperate to get the deal passed. I was even willing to give up some Bethesda games. And after sitting that over the weekend thinking about it, I was like, that is just the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Sony doesn't give up anything. They never offered up anything. The only reason why MLB The Show is on an Xbox and is produced by a PlayStation studio is because MLB was going to take the license from them because they weren't making enough money. I have a strong suspicion that if Sony Pictures ever sold, um, and Sony couldn't hold the Spider-Man rights over Marvel, that could potentially happen. You'd see the next Insomniac game potentially on an Xbox forced by Marvel. And again, what am I talking about? The kind of sidebar here. There's been some rumors floating around the interwebs that Sony Pictures is in big trouble. They are losing money left and right, center, and some of their choices with their Spider-Man films, or at least the upcoming ones, have not been good. So they lost a lot of money. So there's rumors that Sony Pictures or Sony Interactive Entertainment proper may be looking to sell off Sony Pictures. If that does happen, they would immediately relinquish the Spider-Man rights back to Disney because those are not transferable. If they currently they own them, they bought them, but if the company is sold, those rights revert right back to Disney. And then, of course, Marvel would have full control over Spider-Man, and then Sony would not have, that one up on Marvel to lock something like Wolverine or Spider-Man behind a PlayStation console. And there may be a time, and again, this is just I'm just spitballing here, that they could force Sony, Marvel, meaning Disney, could force them to put the next Spider-Man game, not Spider-Man 2, maybe, Spider-Man 3 on an Xbox because they're just not selling as many copies as they would if it was multiplat. Again, we saw that happen with MLB The Show. It could very well happen with Spider-Man if Sony Pictures loses control of the Spider-Man IP. But let me get back to the super chats. We have another one coming in here from Gerald Mack. He actually doesn't drop one, folks. Gentleman drops two. The first one of $2 says, they lied in all caps, and indeed they did. And the second one, and he goes on to say in all caps, and I don't know your voice, Gerald Mack, but if I could reproduce that, I'm sure it's a deep, manly voice. He says this: Lord Cognito made a great point, with the FTC made no mention of their 10-year deal offered to the other platforms. And yes, that is a great point. In this document, this legal binding document that's holding up the Microsoft Activision Blizzard acquisition, no mention of concessions offered to all of these other entities were made. That is pretty crazy. And of course, another inconsistency to the FTC as a whole. And you know what? And speaking of inconsistency, I want to add this to the conversation, Crazy Lou. Is it only me that finds it very suspicious that one of the Republicans, because there's supposed to be 5 people on the party of the decision making when it comes to the FTC, 5 people. Well, there's only 4 people, folks. They had one of the Republican parties quit because they didn't like the way Lena Khan was doing her business. And you know something? That chair, that seat hasn't been filled as of yet. It's a vacancy that they are, from what we understand, they're not in a rush to fill. I don't know, man. That kind of seems a little fugazi to me, that this is going on in American government and that no one is actually saying or doing anything about it. It's crazy, but let me continue. Space Dovigan drops a very generous $10 super chat and says FTC is clearly abusing their power, winning lost cases just by making companies or individuals wait for an insane amount of time is starting to look unconstitutional as Exxon, that's what it is, or Axon, AXON, versus FTC is trying to prove, and that's what I talked about earlier. Axon is a company that's saying that sued the FTC, that has claimed that the way that they hold up deals for years on end is not only unconstitutional, but there's something called due process, meaning that there's supposed to be process of a case within a fair amount of time. Having to have your case stifled for 2 and 3 years at a time isn't good, and I would agree that that's unconstitutional. Crazy Lou, I'll get to the super chats, remaining super chats in a minute. Let's get your opinion on this.
Oh man, I mean, it's been one crazy weekend with all these issues going on. Because I got a question for you all. Really, this is something that's been aching me all weekend. I sat down and I meditated on it. How does a foreign company lobby the American government better than an American company?
You know something? You're not the first person to say that, and that is a phenomenal question. How can a company like Tencent come in and buy company after company after company with no challenge, but yet an American company buying another American company is a problem? I think you're onto something.
Speaking of that, right now, I mean, right now, today, as of today, Pong just tweeted something that I was like, whoa, and FTC doesn't say anything on this. Literally, Splash Damage acquires Bulkhead to develop a new Transformer shooter. And guess who Splash Damage belongs to? It belongs to Tencent.
It does, yes.
It does, yeah. This news just came out 40 minutes ago, and the FTC doesn't say anything.
They can't, because it's a foreign company. But wouldn't you want control over what foreign? Because here's the thing: how many times have we heard, Crazy Lou, that Microsoft could never own Capcom because Japan wouldn't allow it? There's specific laws in place that says an American company can't come in, like the White Knight, and buy up companies in their region. There are laws there to prevent that from happening. Why aren't there laws preventing foreign companies from buying American companies and not having the FTC or anyone in America have a conversation about it? It's very strange.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I've been sitting on this all weekend and just thinking about that. Say, why is this going on? And nobody's saying anything about that. These foreign companies just buying and buying and buying. It's just insane. And Microsoft goes out there and buy, and everybody's like, wait, Microsoft, why are you buying this? Why are you doing that? I mean, it's just crazy that nobody's asking the other companies on why they can continue buying. Microsoft can't do anything. And here's another thing that I also been sitting on. I was thinking about, what's been going on in the past. I went back and sat down and read through a lot of stuff. Like, for example, if this deal does not go through, and it's something that I keep saying, right? If the deal does not go through, what would happen between the relationship between Sony and Activision? It's not going to be good. I mean, I went back and looked at the Activision Blizzard shareholders, which they voted 98-2. 98% of them voted 100% for the buy, for Microsoft to buy Activision Blizzard. That's one thing.
98%.
98%. Yep, 98%.
Wow.
So if you got the shareholders voting 98% of them saying yes, okay, Sony, literally, you got to sit down and think. These guys, if the deal does not go through, they're going to go against you right away. They're going to say, you know what? We got to cut ties with Sony and let's focus on somebody else. I mean, I would do that. That's one. And you also got that Bobby Kotick and everybody else has put the gloves on, and they want this deal to go through. That's two. And here's something that people don't think about. Sony is messing with our consumers' wallets. They are messing with our wallets. Because why? Sony wants, in their perfect world, they want everybody to keep on buying games at $70. They don't want no service game out there because it's going to affect them. Because here's the thing, though, guys. If Game Pass keeps on growing, sooner or later, Sony has to find a way or to get adjusted, or I don't know what they're going to do, because literally they're going to have to get adjusted to this. Because Game Pass is a way for us to save money. And if people are not seeing this, that Sony's trying to prevent this Game Pass, this phenomenal thing from happening, then you guys got to open your eyes. And it's really important.
Are we spirit animals, bro? Like, oh my God, that was beautiful, dude. That was absolutely no. I'm dead serious. Like, You know what? I got a mortgage to pay. I got a lot of other stuff. It's Christmas, man. Like, come on.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's where you go and say, like, even like games as a service. Like, let's be honest here. They haven't. I mean, that's why they're investing so much right now. I mean, really, if you think about it, they haven't thought about that stuff. Like, if I really want to, which I'm not going to do, I can go play Fortnite right now if I wanted to. You know what I mean? I gotta sit through the download or whatever it may be. But you know, Microsoft's trying to eliminate those barriers because they're like, you know what, you could just play on the cloud, and it'll be like almost instantaneous on a device you might not think about gaming on. I mean, it's kind of incredible, and you know, unfortunately, it's really crazy to see Nintendo supporting this and Sony not. Because
I agree.
You know, Nintendo is all about that. You know what I mean? It's all about the engagement with their console. You know what I'm saying? And for them to be supporting that's where like the argument Nintendo. Come on, let's be honest. Like they're probably going to beat PS2 numbers by the time they come out with a new console.
You know something that's interesting? Well, they just surpassed, like I said in the opening, they just surpassed the PlayStation 4 numbers. And yes, you know, right now I can get the exact number in a second, but yeah, you're right. I think there's a good shot that the Nintendo Switch, the one that doesn't matter in the industry, the one that's considered number 2, the one that has won 47 consecutive MPD months of console sales, doesn't matter in the big picture. It's a falsity by the FTC, 100%. It's ridiculous.
A freaking lie.
It is just a freaking lie. Yeah.
And I was gonna say something else about this too. I mean, look at this. Everybody in the video game industry, everybody is 100% behind this buy. Probably Google's not. Probably with Activision Blizzard having the issue where they're in China, they're probably not supporting it right now. But everybody is 100%. That's it. Like 97% of the video game industry is applauding this buy. I mean, you got 2K happy, you got EA happy, you got all these big names happy for this buy, and you got little old Sony going out there crying because, of course, why are they crying? It's because they are scared because they are literally behind Microsoft right now. Microsoft is going forward, and they don't even know what they're gonna do. They're like, it's like this bomb just blew up on their face, and they're like, "Oh man, what are we gonna do? Oh, let's go stop this." But either way you stop it, though.
Can I interject again, real quick?
Go for it.
I'm sorry. You really brought up a great point, dude. Because if you really look at it, why would Take-Two, who's a third party like Activision, agree with this also? Why wouldn't? I mean, we haven't seen anything from Ubisoft. We haven't seen all we've seen from platform holders. This is a purchase of a publisher / software developer. I mean, that's what they are. So why is the interjection from the main platform holder at this time? Because a lot of people ignore this, but they're still supporting PlayStation 4 games, people. They're still making new IP for PlayStation 4.
You know, it's funny. I want to interject here for a second because I had this in my brain, and obviously, you know, I'm getting old, so it's not as sharp as it used to be, folks. So I apologize for not throwing out this point. But, you know, when they talk about Microsoft not being trustworthy when it comes to Bethesda games, I don't know. Am I a lunatic here when I say that? What the H are they talking about?
Yeah.
Didn't Deathloop launch exclusively on a PlayStation and it was a Game of the Year nomination? What about Ghostwire Tokyo? Has that gotten to an Xbox yet? No, that's not until next year. They said they would honor all current contracts, and they did. And here's something else. Someone had put it in the DMs, and someone had mentioned this on the in the chat. And I want to thank. We had over 600 people here, so that's awesome. Thank you so much for that. I know I'm not the only one that knows this. I know this is not the first time I'm saying this, guys, but we have it on confirmed facts that Sony tried to lock up Starfield as a full-time PlayStation 5 exclusive. That is not a suggestion. That is an absolute fact. And what happened? Microsoft bought Bethesda and put the kibosh on that. So Sony was trying to lock up the IP that they're claiming that I actually claim we should give them. Wow, what was I thinking? And think about that for a second. Sony wanted this IP for their own brand. It wouldn't have been on an Xbox. And you know what? The world would have been okay with it. Regulators would be okay with it. Anybody would have been like, well, that's just business. They went out and they bought an IP that's new, and they want to they want to make Microsoft, the stepchild, if you will. What about that, folks? Just saying. Continue, Crispy.
Oh no, Crazy Lou, man, you've been killing it, bro. Go for it, dude.
But yeah, like I was saying before, I mean, all these companies are 100% behind this buy, and yet you're the only one who's saying no, 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 no,
Yep.
no. So I don't understand. So the FTC goes out there and literally grabs all of Sony's argument, because I mean, after you sit down, you read the 22 pages of Sony response,
Right.
and you sit down and you read the FTC's response. Literally, you combine them. It's pretty much the same thing. It's like if Sony wrote it. So
it is a lot of their lead comments sound like it's written by a Sony fanboy.
Yeah.
It does. It does.
It does. So again, their arguments are not valid. Like I was saying before, let's say, okay, the shareholders went 98.2. Let's say if it was 40-60, right? Let's put the scenario. Then I'll give the FTC an argument to argue about. Let's say if half of the video game industry is against this buy, and half of it is pro with this buy, then FTC, I'll give you the valid arguments. But dude, if you guys are not seeing what's going on and how everybody is supporting this buy, you really need to sit down and open your eyes. Literally, FTC needs to sit down and open your eyes. I mean, and literally, this is something for the future. This is something that's going to protect our wallets, our consumer wallets. This is why we sit here, we talk about it each and every week, because we want this buy to go through, because, hey, it's to protect our wallets. Sony's not caring for a wallet. Sony wants everybody to buy games at $70 and spend all the money you can on video
and
games,
maybe more, Lou, because there was a
Yeah.
comment from Sony that said we could raise prices again if the market changes. What would people say to an $80 Sony game? I would say that good luck on me buying and supporting Sony any further. I'll tell you that right now.
What?
Wait,
what?
But listen, there's been some talk where Sony has said something to the effect that game prices could raise in the future. So take it for what it's worth, whether it's Sony saying it or it's a rumor. If they try to raise prices again, they're out of their minds. I will tell you that right now. But what I want to go to next, and this is going to be a little bit longer. Normally, we're out of here in 90 minutes, folks, for Mondays. And the story that everyone is foaming at the mouth to talk about as we close in on 600 people here. And I'm going to get to the super chats momentarily. I want to read what Tom Warren from The Verge. And if you don't know who Tom Warren is, well, you should. He is the senior editor at TheVerge.com. Obviously, he talks about Microsoft specifically, but he is a gaming journalist. And basically, he had just posted an hour ago this. He says the CMA has published a response to the Microsoft Activision merger from an unknown market participant, and it says here, largely backing Microsoft's deal and calling on the CMA to protect consumers, not preserve the status quo of competitors. And I have the document in front of me, and folks, it's a bit lengthy. I can read if you guys want. And again, this is just so we understand. We don't know who this quote unquote participant is. There are rumors that I've been checking back and forth. I have not been able to clarify exactly who it is, but the rumor that is going around is that this is Epic Games. And I'm going to read one of the first. I'll read the A and B part of this. Again, it's a very, very lengthy document, and I don't have the skills like Hogue Law to do an 8.5-hour show, though I wish I did. And this is what it says. Given the CMA's role in championing consumer benefits, it should use this transaction as an opportunity towards felicitating and the transition towards cloud gaming, which is where the future of video games is headed. The CMA should ensure It is focused on seeing the best outcome for consumers and not act as an impediment to greater choice, nor the furtherment of innovation in developing markets such as cloud gaming. We feel, and I'm assuming that, let's just say, for instance, this is in fact Epic Games. We feel that the direction of travel is inevitable. Therefore, the CMA should be at the forefront of this development to help set the agenda in a pro-consumer manner and not be an impediment to positive developments in this space, which ultimately provide greater choice. While concerns have been raised by Sony in particular, ultimately, the CMA's priority is in protecting consumers and not to preserve the status quo of competitors. This industry is far from static and one that frequently has new entrants that have the ability to quickly capture game market share, such as had happened with Fortnite. It is understandable that Sony is seeking to maintain its position, given it's invested a lot of capital, time, and energy towards creating this. However, the landscape is changing given the wide adoption of subscription based services and cloud based platforms in other industries. These have reduced the barriers to entry in such innovation, has allowed consumers to have new methods to pay for content, along with having a wider range of content without sacrificing quality. Wow. Let me take a breath. That was a lot, folks, but that is only 2 paragraphs of what is an intense document. If you'd like, I will include it in the show notes so you could download it or read it right from Double Barrel Gaming if you want. I'm gonna go back to Crispy. Crispy, whoever this is, clearly throws Sony under the bus and clearly continues to mention multiple times consumerism. We matter. They shouldn't worry about other entities, i.e., PlayStation. They are there to protect consumers. When you see this response, and we're starting to, like I said, in the coming days, potentially the coming weeks before the holiday, we're going to see more of these documents make their way to public viewage. And it appears that most people, like most entities like EA, like 2K, like Steam, they all seem to think that this deal is a big nothing burger, that it's going to make the industry better. And Sony is being painted into a corner. What are your thoughts on this document making the rounds?
Is it Epic? Is it Take-Two?
Is it EA? You know, obviously,
I don't think. I think, because EA is already in bed with Xbox, that they don't want them to say anything. You know what I'm saying? Like you get 10-hour trials. Like, yeah, Xbox perfectly fine with that. Like, EA has dictated the terms if you really look at it, because you're only getting a 10-hour trial. So I don't think it's EA. EA is still kind of like, in that crux of like, hey, we're not traditional, but at the same time, we still charge for 10-hour trials. You know what I mean? And that's where I go and say, like, this money isn't spent. Microsoft could just be like, yo, EA, like, we'll pay you a ton of money if your games are in Game Pass completely. Like not 10-hour trials. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I don't feel EA needs to say anything.
Certainly not Gabe Newell either. It's not Steam saying this.
Ubisoft is in absolutely no place to say anything at all.
Right.
Like they basically are Activision right now, because Activision's got more news about it being acquired. You know what I'm saying? So,
right.
You look at that and you say, who is it? I mean, you saw in the document plus Epic. Like once they like it was almost like an intern was doing it. This statement that you were talking about right now did not come from an intern, and that's where, like, if you think about it, Epic, their lawyers who are hired, and their lawyers have just went through Apple not too long ago, really. And if they're in support for this, regardless of how it may look at times that, Epic's, doing stuff for Sony, they're a third party and they can do what they want, people. And Microsoft's not going to take away Call of Duty. They are legitimately saying, Sony, sit down, we'll have a talk. And Sony won't do it.
They won't do
That
it.
is
It's
their problem. That's not anybody else. It's not the consumer's problem. That is their problem.
It is, absolutely. Something, you said, could it be Take-Two? And I just pulled a quote from Zelnick, who is the head chair at 2K Games. And this is what he had to say, Crispy. I can't really predict what the regulators would do. We are certainly on the belief it's a good thing for Microsoft and for the industry. And when he's asked to clarify his statement, this is what he adds, folks. It's a highly fragmented business, and there's plenty of creativity to go around. Microsoft is an ally of ours, and if this makes their business more powerful, we think it's good for us. That gave me goosebumps, folks.
I mean, you have to look at it because we're talking about buying a third party. It's not like, all right, if Microsoft tried to buy Sony or Nintendo, I think everybody would have a problem. I mean, from my standpoint, the more competition, the better. So,
Right. Yeah.
Microsoft would completely overstep it, even in my eyes, if they tried to buy, not only a hardware maker, but a developer as well, because both of them are. You know what I'm saying? That would be completely that's where I would draw the line. I'd be like, no, you cannot do this. You know what I mean? Because right now, you'd say what you want, but I'm a gamer. I understand I only own the Xbox right now. That's for a damn reason.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And from a consumer standpoint, I get day and date exclusives. I mean, obviously, I love a lot of them, but they're also just available. They're there. I pay subscription like I do for Netflix or anything else, and they're just there. You know what I mean? And might never play it, but at least I have the option. You know what I'm saying? Like it's something that, Sony refuses to do, and they could do this. They're already charging more for their highest tier.
Yeah, it's $3 more than Game Pass. $18 for old games.
That's why they put it in tiers, because they're segregating the fact that like you still don't have games day and date in your service. Like I can't buy a PlayStation 5, subscribe for the 15 or like Microsoft would do, $1. I can't subscribe to that and go and play God of War Ragnarok. And that's a problem. And they don't want to concede to that. And this document is basically pointing that out completely. Like, how are you going to make how bad did Apple do when MS-DOS came out? Anybody remember that? MS-DOS came out, and this was a partnership, okay? And between Microsoft and I don't remember the company's name, but it was DOS. That's why it was MS-DOS. And the Apple computer came out, and it was this green screen. It was horrible, whatever it may be. And then all of a sudden, you started getting digital images. Like, Microsoft has pushed the industry for years. Sometimes too hard, sometimes at their own fault, sometimes really looked bad. But in this case, when it comes to gaming, I'm sorry. Would I like the Sony people that might listen to the show to play God of War Ragnarok for $15? If you don't like it, you undownload it, you get Stray or whatever it may be. That's what I want. And you can say what you want, but Microsoft's pushing to that narrative.
Yeah.
And that's okay in my book. I'm sorry.
Well, they're changing the industry for the consumer. Obviously, we understand it's a business. None of us here are boobs. We understand that they have to heed to their shareholders to make money for them. It's a business. And like everyone says, it's not show friends, it's show business. But listen, good stuff. Let's get Dave on here, our money man of the panel. Hearing what we just put out there. Obviously, there are a lot of people in the industry that are for this deal. We don't know who this is. I would imagine at some point our internet detectives will are already on the case, so to speak, because like Idle Sloth is a perfect example of that. Wario 64, Tom Warren, and so many others give us incredible daily information for just following them on Twitter, which of course, if you're not following any of them, shame on you. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think that this is ultimately going to be the overall sentiment from most of the bigs in the industry?
Yeah, I think I think that the document that you read was a clear reminder to everybody that that there's a truth behind this that that is really being repressed, that is really being angled away from. That that the entities that are just trying to block the deal, stop the deal. When it comes down, if you take a step back, the FTC, they're Lena Khan is trying to, she'd make her case. She's trying to, prove to the administration that brought her into power that she was the right choice and that she's going to defend, our country against these big corporations and when them trying to buy up everything. That's her goal.
Mhm.
And with that goal, she is blindly going after these companies with anything she thinks. Kind of the old adage, throw it at the wall and see what sticks.
Indeed,
and
yes.
that's really what it looks like. Is that's what she's trying to do. It's not a good light for her from the other side, but then again, from the administration side, who's trying to accomplish this goal, is to to kind of put corporations in their place. Um, it's it's kind of surprising too because Microsoft, they do make donations to the political parties, and I believe if we check the records that they actually made a bigger donation to the Democratic Party this past year and the year before than they did the Republican side. Which, not to get into politics, but the whole point is, they understand, you know this is a shell game, a lot of it. And I said, in the long run, this document helps us know that we're on the right track, the righteous track, as it were, to that there definitely is hope that this is going to go through, and I really do think that they are just going to keep throwing stuff and keep trying to throw obstacles in the way until they can come and say, we did everything we could. We did
Yeah.
everything that we've done everything that we can, and then here you go. And that's probably what is going to happen. Now they may try and sue and stop and all this thing, but when it comes down to it, and you clearly look at these arguments, and Hoglaw has done such a great job
Yeah.
of bringing these up, that it just does not look good for the FTC's argument in their case. He even said their strongest case that he sees is the Game Pass argument, and even then, that's something that he thinks that in a court of law he could win.
Yeah. No,
So
he basically said that the this is going to get eviscerated
yeah,
by a federal judge. And ultimately, how do we get to a federal judge that isn't 2 years from now? That is, of course, if um the CMA and the EU, as single entities, but as a combined voice, pass this deal. If they pass the deal, then Microsoft is going to move forward in closing the deal. What's going to have to happen at that point, and how it's been explained to me. And again, if I'm wrong, if you're a lawyer, please let me know. I'm not a lawyer. I know penal law for sure. I know the patrol guide for sure. But I don't know. I know criminal law. I don't know business law. So if I'm wrong, by all means, please correct me. I
yeah,
will say
yeah.
this though, and I'll let you continue in a
No,
second.
you're good.
If the way that this has been presented from every angle, Dave,
Hmm.
is wrong.
Yes.
And I'm not saying it's wrong in just logistics. I mean, it's straight up in some aspects, they lied.
Yeah.
They're there to protect people from lies, but yet their entity, the FTC, is lying. It's bonkers to me that you put this in your document as to try and benefit your case when I think ultimately it's going to destroy it. But please continue.
No, you're right on your time. And to put my into this, it's you know, they definitely are trying everything they can, to get the deal through or get the deal to stop, excuse me. And Microsoft really does not I think that's why they're being mum. That's why they're being I mean, obviously they're standing their ground on a few things, but people saying, well, they didn't show games, they didn't show that, you know. I think that there's a reason for that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think that sooner than later we are going to see either a big presentation or some big announcements on some things coming out next year. And it may wait until the beginning of the new year to drop this, and not necessarily that because to Microsoft point, this year is kind of already a write-off. In other words, they have some great games coming out in Game Pass. I mean, there's a game that came out, was it today or later on today?
Yeah. Well, High on Life comes out tomorrow, I think.
Yes, that's
Yes.
going to be fantastic. And
Yeah.
and now in Game Pass you can pre-download the Atomic Heart and the Monster Hunter. So there's we have lots of things to keep us busy if that's what you're playing, as well as whatever else is already in there. I know that we'll be playing more Vampire Slayers soon, but
Yes.
but yeah, it's just it's kind of a shame that it has to come to this, but then again, if you're a person that looks at the legal arguments, and it's like you're like, wow, this there can be some crazy opinions out there on this, and a lot and fanboys will be like oh, Microsoft is trying to destroy gaming. They're not.
No.
They're
That's
trying to make
ridiculous.
gaming better. Vampire Survivor, sorry, and yeah, it's I just like I said, a year from now we're probably gonna look back at this and laugh,
Yeah, we're gonna be
or
laughing
we're
for sure.
or we're gonna be like, ooh, you've unleashed the beast if this doesn't go through, and let's see what happens then. That's all
Well,
I got.
listen, Sony has done everything to paint themselves into a corner, not only with Microsoft, but I think ultimately with the entire industry. This is an industry that has conducted business by acquiring studios and companies for decades. And now what they have ultimately done is, because they're the bratty kid in class, they have now taken the government to now take a magnifying glass and look at every transaction, and that is ultimately going to be a big problem. Listen, I got to catch up on the super chats. We still have to get to Crazy Lou. We got to, of course, get the first fuzzy. But I want to read, folks, so you understand where we're coming from. This is the concluding remarks of this document that was posted pretty much by everyone. Again, it's not from the CMA. It is someone responding to the CMA. We don't know who that said person or entity is. Again, I have 23 open DMs. A lot of people are saying that it appears to be Epic Games, but I don't have that confirmed. I don't know if I'm ever going to have it confirmed. I'm going to leave it for the internet sleuths to figure that out. This is what the concluding remarks have to say. This is very interesting. Whoever this may be, this is their personal belief in regards to the Activision Blizzard transaction or acquisition from Microsoft. It says this, folks. In evaluating the evidence presented during your phase 2 investigation, the ultimate question to answer are whether this transaction will lead to higher prices, less choice, or worse quality for consumers. We believe it is clear that the answer to this question is no. This is a transaction grounded in its focus on community, cooperation, and connection, and it is inherently positive for consumers. It is clear that it will bring creator greater choice at a lower cost without lowering quality for consumers, while also preserving competition and innovation in the digital gaming market. In addition, this transaction is an opportunity for the CMA to lead the way in shaping digital markets policy and assisting with the transition towards increasing use of subscription and cloud gaming platforms in the UK. By setting the standards for this policy in the evolving industry, the CMA can assure such evolution is done with consumer priority in mind and for the betterment of the wider industry. We trust that you will continue your dialogue with both sides, with both sets of parties, Sony and other competitors in the video game industry, and third parties with expertise in this sector. Please let us know if you have any other questions related to the above views. We would be very happy to discuss this further. Thank you for taking our submission into consideration. That is pretty damning. And if it happens to be someone as big as Epic Games, I think that might set a precedence to both the CMA and the EU. Fuzzy, what are your thoughts?
Well, it definitely should catch their attention and hopefully open their eyes a bit. In that there's only one participant in the industry that seems to have a problem. Now, we've heard Zelnick from Take-Two say stuff in the past to Microsoft's favor. We've recently heard Gabe Newell say things favorable to Microsoft. So it's any of these big players. And I would say any publisher or third-party development studio should have an equal standing in saying the same. Like I can't imagine in a competitive space where if, let's say, Activision gets acquired by Microsoft, which we all hope, or a lot of us hope, if you're a publisher or a studio, you're hoping to fill that vacuum. Like they're going to now be first party, and they might still do some multi-platform stuff. But you would probably, at least from my standpoint, in the industry where when I was in the automotive aftermarket stuff, if a bigger company bought a smaller company, well, we want to fill that vacuum. If we manufacture a product or offer a service that same entity did, and now they're attached to this other company, well, we now stand a chance to steal away some of that customer base that they're purchasing by luring them over with either a better product or a similar product or something along those lines. So if I'm a Take-Two or if I'm an Epic and all this talk is about Call of Duty, well, it makes me look inward and say, hey, what do I have already that competes with that? Or what can I develop to kind of fill that void if it should ever go exclusive, or if it should ever like fall off a cliff because of changing of hands? Not everybody's going to be on board with that. You stand a better chance from a competitive standpoint as a company to fill that void. So I can't see anyone other than Sony, obviously for obvious reasons, that would have a gripe or an issue with the matter. So any big publisher, like whether it be Take-Two, Epic, I mean Ubisoft, but Ubisoft is in kind of like a weird position, kind of like what Crispy Bomb was saying earlier. Like they just got a whole influx of cash from Tencent, so they're in a different ballpark. And I've heard some stuff that that they were trying to avoid a takeover, not the hostile one from Vivendi or whatever that was before. They probably had an offer on the table before this ABK deal came and landed in Microsoft's lap, but that's a whole nother rabbit hole. But yeah, whoever this product company A or production company A is that's been redacted, I think there's a lot more within the industry, unless maybe they work for the platform or one of the developing teams for the Sony platform, that are going to be on board with this, just for the fact that now they have more range of opportunity to kind of steal some of what Activision was published. Well, not steal, but at least fill any voids or missed opportunities, or sneak in and grab up a market share for that customer base. So I'm just glad that there is at least one that they've published so far, and hopefully more get on board with that and do the same.
Well, you know, it's funny. We keep saying Epic Games. Well, I just got a DM, or one of the DMs, one of the 23 DMs I have open comes the way of Everborn Saga. And apparently, again, does anyone follow Tim Sweeney? I don't. It's not because I don't like the man. It's just I just never knew I wasn't following him. I thought it was. Apparently, he has responded, and it says it's got a blue check mark. He's got 200,000 followers. I don't know. It says this, folks. Possibly Tim Sweeney at Tim Sweeney Epic Games, and it says on the header, "I'm Tim Sweeney. Yes, the real Sweeney. All you other Tim Sweeneys are just imitating." So I don't know if this is really him, but this is what he had to say. If this happens to be the head of Epic Games. That's not Epic's response. I don't know whose response that is. Epic hasn't taken a position on the Microsoft Activision acquisition, either publicly or privately. It is a complicated thing with some potential benefits and drawbacks, and the consequences are hard to predict. So just take it for what it's worth. If that happens to be the real Team Sweeney, please stand up. Yeah. I don't know what else to say, but you like that, right?
Yeah.
Listen, let me catch up on the super chats, and then we will get Crazy Lou Gaming, and we'll get everyone out of here. Sorry, I'm sorry for the longer show, but I know that a lot of people are enjoying it, and we have 605 people here. That's awesome. If you're following the channel, awesome. If you're new and you just found the channel, please consider subscribing, folks. We are on the hunt for 12K, and we are just a little over 500 away. I'd love to hit it by the end of the year. I don't think we can, but you just never know.
Everybody, please hit the like button. Please hit the like button.
Yes, I always forget that. I always get, you know, who yells at me for that all the time is Randall Thor. He says, "Boom, you never tell people to hit the like button." It's just, I don't know. Smuzz 246, who's been a member for 1 year. Thank you, Smuzz, for that. He drops a $5 super chat and says, "The head of the FTC is on a headhunt for personal and political gain. No other way to put it." Absolutely. Double X Wolverine Double X, who's been a channel member for 3 months, says this. The FTC is a mess right now, since even has it become a thing to go against the U.S. tech company just because. Yeah, they are a mess. They're a mess. A lot of people are leaving the FTC because they don't believe in the Lena Khan-led way of doing business. Otherworldly Gaming drops a very generous $10 super chat. Oh, wait a second. Hold on. I missed something. Okay. He did drop a $10 super chat. At this point, do you think it's just a game of schematics between the European reports and the FTC allegations? I think that if you put evidence, if we are going to make this decision based on fact, which is what we're supposed to do, you cannot use your opinion like Lena Khan and the FTC is doing. Their opinion matters, but you cannot argue facts, and you cannot argue evidence. If you choose not to use the evidence that has been presented, then ultimately the case is going to fail. That is an absolute fact, and I think that ultimately the FTC will lose in court, and I think that the CMA and the EU Commission will approve this deal, forcing the FTC's hand. Again, that's just my opinion. I could be 1,000% wrong, but we will soon see. We also have Raiden Blade, who's been a member for 19 months of the channel. Thank you so much for that. He goes, "I don't think Xbox will return to Game of the Year. I wonder why Jeff had the camera on Phil when Crash was on stage. That order came from him. Jeff was extra happy." Look, I don't know who gave the order. I know that they showed Phil a couple of times, and Phil had a good face on. Phil's a good dude. He goes out there, he puts out a handshake to anyone that wants to shake his hand, take a picture. That's Phil Spencer. I would imagine, folks, that it was hard for him to sit there knowing this news dropped a few hours before he was supposed to go to the Game Awards. I'm sure that was very difficult. It was difficult for me to be a podcaster, not the head of Microsoft Gaming. So I can only imagine what he and Sarah Bond and everyone that was going to this thing felt like. It was a bit of a defeat. I mean, I was so moved by it that I was willing to give up Starfield to PlayStation 5. And that's when I sat back and I walked myself off the edge of madness. But again, only time is going to tell. Ultimately, I do think this deal does pass. We also have Wolverine, Double X Wolverine drops an additional $5 super chat and says the FTC needs to lose power and federal court needs to be involved from the get-go. As a Democrat, I don't agree with their process. You're not the only one, brother. Drawn TJ drops an additional $5 super chat and says, it's like King David said, no PlayStation 6 only becomes Sega. You woke a sleeping giant. I think I don't know if there is or there's not going to be a PlayStation 6, but Sony is the only thing keeping Sony afloat right now is not their electronics, it is PlayStation. And Sony Pictures is losing their money, which is why there's rumors that they might sell Sony Pictures. Sony could be in trouble. Maybe there isn't a PlayStation 6. Maybe they go the way of Sega. Only time is going to tell. We have Unbatten drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, if Nintendo buying them, the FTC wouldn't block it. No, they wouldn't, because they're a foreign entity. They would be like, yeah, sure, buy them, it's fine. Harky Chani, what's up, brother? How's everything? He drops a very generous $10 super chat. And if you'd like to join us on Wednesday, my brother, we have a lot to get into. I have an incredible story led by something everyone said. I'll DM you. Well, no, I'll email you. I can't DM you. He says this after dropping a very generous $10 super chat. He says the Sony influence on these responses is so evident. The largest gaming subscription service, Apple Arcade, is totally ignored in them because they don't compete directly with PlayStation. So much poop. Yes, he does the poop emoji. Thank you for that, brother. He's right. The biggest digital game company is not Xbox. It's not Nintendo's store. It's not PlayStation. It is Apple Arcade, which makes millions per month. They make a lot of money, and that's why they are considering doing their own console. It's crazy to me that the way that this thing has been dissected to add certain companies and remove others from the conversation is just ridiculous. Silent Cipher. Wow. My goodness, brother. Thank you so much for that. He drops a very generous $20 super chat and says, great show, great panel. Thank you for giving me something to listen to during work. It's our pleasure, brother. And thank you for always providing incredible content on the Xbox International Podcast. And speaking of which, Crazy Lou, let's get your opinion on this closing statement from what apparently is not Epic Games. The question is who it is.
Oh man, I really do not know who it is though. But like I was saying earlier, they're 100% right on everything they're saying on there. I mean, like I said, if Sony does not get adjusted to what's going to happen in the future, with all this cloud and everything that's been going on, I mean, literally, they're going to stay behind. And this is something that needs to happen. And this buy needs to go through, because like I was saying earlier, they're messing with our wallets. We need all of this stuff to go through so we can be all happy and we can have access to everything, everywhere, anywhere. Because like what Crispy said earlier, right now I can drop off and hop on my cell phone, play Fortnite, or anywhere you can go. And that's something that we needed to happen. And yes, they are behind. They need to upgrade. They need to go for this. And I found it pretty funny that I was thinking about all this, and this document just drops down here. Speaking of like all the good stuff, that if this buy goes through, everything that happens, all the good things are going to come by it. And it's basically what I was thinking about this whole week. I was like, man, if this goes through, we get this, we get that, which is pretty cool. And these guys are messing with us. And I just wish that, again, that CMA, like I said, needs to open their eyes, see what's going on, and really take note of what this thing that dropped in today. Take note from that and go through this buy. I hope they do.
I see a lot of talk. First of all, great response. And everyone has knocked it out of the park. Folks, we're going to get out of here, but I see there's a lot of concern as to whether or not the EU regulators have actually responded to the FTC's claims. Folks, this is not an assumption. This is not my opinion. This is a proven fact. The EU did respond. I have multiple stories in front of me, and it does specifically say that the European Commission has dished out some pushback on the suit. The Commission argues Microsoft had been honest about the Xbox exclusivity for Redfall and Starfield, and this cannot be used as examples of withholding content. Microsoft told them that and you can pull it anywhere. Each game would be based on a case by case basis. Thank you for that. So they didn't lie to anyone, and this deal got approved with no concessions from the CMA and the EU Commission. What you have to ask yourself is that if this was true, if this statement would have been true to the EU regulators, don't you think Microsoft would have said the same thing to Lena Khan and the FTC? And the answer is yes, they would have. And if that is in fact the case, how come the FTC is quoting the EU and not using their own documents, their own wording that they received from Microsoft? You know why that is? Is because they lied. It never happened. They said case by case basis, and that they were going to honor all current contracts, which they have. So suggesting that Microsoft is not trustworthy because of past of past dealings with specifically the Bethesda deal, that ultimately is a lie, and that's why this case is going to fail. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to get everyone out of here. We spent 2 hours talking about this, 2 amazing topics. Thank you so much for hanging out and spending an extra 30 minutes, because normally this is like a like 80-90 minute show. Crispy Bomb, sell your brand, brother. Where could people find you on other podcasts, and more importantly, reach out to you on social media?
Man, I mean, at the end of the day, as an American individual, I have to say, let's not forget about the CWA. Okay. And the fact that I haven't seen a single person that works at Activision against this. Okay. Because social media is a lot bigger than what we look at. This is important for the workers. Okay. This is against what Amazon, Apple, and Google want to do. And Microsoft saying, you know what? It's okay. We're good with it. We think it's going to be better. And you know what? That's where my confusion is. But it's at ChrisBomb on Twitter, ChrisBomb28 Xbox Live. You can find me tomorrow night, 7 p.m. on the Retro Renegades. We got 7 p.m. Wednesday, primetime gaming. And of course, 8 p.m. on the next podcast on Thursday. And wherever the heck else I might be. We'll see you then.
Thanks so much for being here. Listen, I want to apologize. We had so many people in the chat. Normally, I like to try and welcome in everyone, because I was going back and forth to DMs and trying to pull documents while I'm doing it live. It was too much. So if I missed you, I want to say thank you so much for spending your 2 hours with us. I just dropped into the chat. I just pulled a story from WCCFtech.com that talks specifically about what the EU regulators said after the FTC claimed that they were lied to. You can reach out to any of your favorite sites. Just type in what's on the lead title. You'll be able to find it. I only found one because, like I said, I'm live on the air, so I'll add it to the show notes. So if you want to click on it, by all means, go crazy. Web Dave, sell your brand, brother. Talk about the incredible sit-down conversation you had with Silent Cypher, one of the voices of the Xbox International podcast today. You got a big one coming next week from Tim Dog, the Xbox guy in the community. Where could people subscribe to your incredible YouTube channel? But more importantly, reach out to you on social media.
Thanks, Boom. Appreciate it, man. Good show today. A lot of lively chat. We had to keep control of it. We did good. We did pretty good. Everybody's got their opinions. That's cool, as long as they keep them civil and within reality. Where I'm good with that. but yeah, no, it was a great show. Great being here. I love being on with Fuzzy, Crispy. It's always a pleasure when you're here, sir. And Crazy Lou, you are the craziest. That's all I'm saying. But yes, Silent Cypher, he's amazing and is a really good interview. And you guys should definitely check it out. It's available right now on my channel, Outbreak Podcast. The link's in the description, or you can just you can do at Outbreak Gamers and YouTube. That'll pop right up to my channel. And Yeah, it's good time and a really good interview. And next week's interview is Tim Dog from RDX, and holy crap! That's all I'm saying. It's a good interview. He gets crazy, and yeah, lots of good information, lots of good stuff, and we just get to know how close him and Phil really are. It's pretty awesome.
I
And,
got to hear that. I got to
oh,
hear
Yeah,
that.
it's
you
a
would.
good one.
I have some inside baseball, if you will. And to be honest with you, it is shocking how close Tim Dog is to head of Microsoft Gaming, Phil Spencer. I mean,
Yeah.
wow, it's crazy.
Yeah, and he was super nice. So,
Yeah, he's
so
a
you
gentleman.
definitely want to check that out. And then, gosh, coming up in the next couple of weeks, I got some other good ones, including Lord Cognito. We're trying to work out the times now. You know, it's holiday season, so but we're committed, both of us, to get it done so we can get that great interview up with
Nice.
him too. So, and again, thanks to everybody in the chat, and there's also another super chat, Boom, I'll throw in there for you.
Yes, yeah, I see it in front of me.
Yeah,
I got it in front of me.
So,
I can't say where, Dave.
Love you too, Fuzzy.
Can't say where, but I recently sat down to dinner with Tim Dog, and he is an absolute rock star and a gentleman. I will say that. Gamers Play HUD Zero drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, "Inside baseball." That's funny. I just use the same term. That's crazy. Microsoft and Xbox is going hard in 2023. Can't tell you resources yet. Activision Blizzard is not stopped. It's a stall tactic. Yeah, dude, I agree. It is absolutely a stall tactic. But thank you for that. Fuzzy Belvedere, sell your brand, brother. Talk about the best place for all of your racing information, where they could reach out to you on social media, and more importantly, where they can find you on other podcasts.
Well, just want to thank you for having me on, and I probably ran into a little bit of a rant, and I do apologize.
No. We love rants on this.
We love hearing from you, buddy.
But it was awesome being on here with you guys. Always great having Crispy Bomb as a special guest with us, man. Love doing podcasts with you as well, and same for you, Dave, and same for you, Crazy Lou, and always for you, Boom. For anybody who wants to hear my endless ramblings or rants on anything gaming related, follow me on pretty much all social media, Fuzzy_Belvedere. It's the same with the gamer tag. PlayStation has the underscore, Xbox just has a space. You can also find me on other podcasts like FSP later on tonight, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Fun Speculations channel. You can also find me on Breakfast with Boom right here on Double Barrel Gaming at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Friday morning. Then later that evening, Xbox Ultimate right back on Fun Speculations channel at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the evening. And then on Saturday, the Shop Podcast on PTK Blam's channel at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Arizona time. And then right back here at 12 noon on Monday for Xbox Lunch Break Special. Look forward to seeing you guys there.
Yeah, brother. Thank you so much. That real quick shout out to Pixelbit G, good friend of the program. He says the FTC can't use their own statement because there's no such statement was made to them. There you go. Crazy Lou Gaming, sell your brand, brother. Talk about the Xbox International podcast, the rest of your incredible crew over there. You just added a fourth body to the conversation. And where can people reach out to you and see some of your crazy antics on social media?
Oh man, Boom. Thank you for having on today. Always fun. Crispy, thank you for joining us on this awesome ride. Web Dave, you're awesome. Fuzzy, the ruthless Fuzzy. Oh man, Fuzzy on Friday was ruthless. Oh my God, I'm still hurting from that, all that pain, man. But hey, you can find me at Crazy Louie Gaming at Twitter, where I say good morning, say what's up to everybody each and every single day. You can also find me here 12 p.m. at noon, here hanging out with you guys at the Xbox Lunch Break Special. And last but not least, you can find me at the Xbox International Podcast, 7 p.m. on Wednesdays with my brother Silent Cypher, Sour Blow, and the Big Plume, talking about what's going on each and every single week in the gaming world.
Thank you so much for being here, part of this show each and every week. We love having you. We love the craziness that you bring to it. Everyone knocked it out of the park. 600 plus people here. And again, I just want to remind everybody, this Friday, Mrs. BoomStick and I are doing something that we have never done before in the history of the channel. We are giving away $1,000 in one show, in 2 hours. 5 $100 gift cards, 5 $100 gift cards are being given away up front. Those are to channel members, and the other 500 are going to be given to anyone that is in the chat for the second half of our 5th annual Christmas with Mr. and Mrs. Boomstick.
Heck yeah.
And we are doing something different this year. Money is tight for a lot of folks. So normally you win, you tell me what platform you want, I send you the gift card. We are doing something a little different, like I just said, for this particular contest, because you might want to buy something for your loved one if you are a winner. We will send you the $100 in cash, and we will pay all transfer fees. We will pay all denominational differences in currency value. So if you're in the UK and you have a higher value, we will pay for that. The only way we are going to do that is use of PayPal. So you must have a PayPal account, simply because it protects me and Mrs. Boom from fraud. And giving away $1,000 on one show is something that I have never seen anyone do. And we're not corporate.
Because it hasn't happened, Boom.
That's right.
It hasn't happened.
Boom, you're the man.
Salute to you, brother.
Thank you, brother.
Salute to you.
Here comes the money.
Well, I mean, no, don't let it play. Don't play. I don't want this.
No, you're
this,
good.
Okay. But yeah, thanks, Dave. I first of all, Dave, thank you so much for the sound effects. You always seem to hit them just right. I appreciate that, and thank you for the comment, Fuzzy, Crispy. Look, we're not rich, folks. We're a small channel. We're still growing, but we are. Our mission statement is to give back as much as possible to this community. I think we do a good job at doing that.
Love you for that, Boom.
Oh, thank you, brother. I love you too, bro. I appreciate it. But this is important to us. And if you wonder how we're able to do it on a retired salaries, I can't do it on my own. I do it through super chats, and I do it through channel membership. And what we do is we bank those monies. And when this deal is done this Friday, Mrs. Boom and I will have given out $3,500 worth of gift cards and monies to anybody in the community. That's a lot. And like I said, we're not corporate funded. Microsoft doesn't give me any dimes to help do this. This is all our own monies that we collect from super chats and from channel memberships. And obviously, join us for the conversation, but join us because you might get a shot at winning a $100 gift card or $100 in cash, your choice. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to close out the show with something that's important to me. Hopefully one day it will be important to you. And that's something that my dad taught us when we were kids. And he would say, son, treat others how you want to be treated. And it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules. I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. And we'll see you next week on the newest episode of the Xbox Lunch Break Special.